Want a bigger harvest this summer? June is a turning point, and by completing these 13 essential jobs, you'll feel it in your harvest baskets. Every month we give you some jobs that we consider to be some of the most important things that you need to do to maintain a healthy garden. And I thought I'd just give you an example of just what happens if these jobs are not done. We said, it would have been a couple of videos ago, you saw Mrs. W standing the other side of these broad beans and she was snipping the tops, and we've been enjoying those. But I've actually deliberately left some tops on here because I really want to show you what would happen if you didn't do that. And you can see here that there's lots of blackfly congregating on this particular plant where we haven't taken the top out. And on this one you can see that there is none where Mrs. W has taken the tops out. It really does work. It does act as a little helipad for those blackfly to actually gather on. They can land there, and albeit we have huge harvest of broad beans that we're going to be beginning harvesting very soon, so they're not going to do too much damage to the plant. But if you get a really bad infestation, they really can start to do some damage to your plants. First job for the month is that you'll find that your soft fruit will now be starting to ripen. And if you haven't yet netted them, it's a really good idea to do that. Birds in particular are attracted to anything red. You can see here that these outdoor strawberries, they are actually now starting to turn red. And we have some absolute corkers on here. And the last thing that I want is for the birds to be able to get them. And it really is such a simple setup. It's just some hoops with some bird netting over. The bird netting allows the pollinators to pass through so that the flowers can be pollinated, so that you get strawberries, but the birds can't get to them. The reason I like to put it over hoops is because it raises the netting, because a bird beak will go through there. And if there was a strawberry here, it would quite easily be able to put its beak through here. I can't tell you just how amazing it smells in here. Hopefully you can see all of the strawberries that we have from these hanging baskets. We've got a lot to harvest, and the smell, I can smell the sugars just standing here. But sometimes you really do need to get clever, because I came up here the other day and I said to Mrs. W, Mrs. Blackbird is in there. I wonder what she's doing. And then I looked and I said, I'm sure we had 2 or 3 strawberries that were red on there, and they're now gone. Of course, we need ventilation in here, so I don't want to shut the door. It's currently 36.2 degrees in here now, so we definitely need the doors open. But equally, we need pollinators to get in here, but we don't want Mrs. Blackbird. So Mrs. W has come up here and she's just put a simple piece of bird netting over here, and it's a win-win situation for all of us. So get clever with your netting strategies. When it comes to raspberries, they send up their suckers all over the place, and when you see them when they're out of their area where you want them to grow, then it's important that you do just dig them up. And then you won't have lots of raspberry canes where you don't want them. The amount of bees around here, Mrs. W, is just amazing. They're all over these raspberry plants. And it looks like, pretty much like last year, it's going to be a bumper harvest for raspberries this year. They're really enjoying life.
That's what I like to hear.
But what you will be noticing is that it's sending up new growth. And with that new growth, you can be beginning to tie that in so that you know which is new and which is old. It's easy to tell which are the old canes because they've got the fruit on it. With summer fruiting raspberries, they flower on the previous year's wood. The new plants that they're throwing up now will have no raspberries on them. My next tip also revolves around soft fruit. This is our Blackberry. It's a thornless variety called Loch Ness. And once the flowers start to appear, I can see lots of flower buds now appearing on here, it will start to send up new stems. And just like the summer fruiting raspberries, this will carry the fruit for next year. Now they do get quite large. If I just leave these here, they'll be over here and into next door's garden. So it is a really good idea to actually get a piece of string and just tie them back. If your structure is big enough, try to put them to one side. That will help you distinguish them when you come to cut them down in the autumn. Enjoy the last harvest of your asparagus this month. Ours is not really throwing up too many shoots anymore. There's the odd one here you can see, but there's not really enough now for our harvest, so it's coming to the end of its harvest. You can see I've already let some of the asparagus go to flower. Very much like your daffodils, you leave the green stem there, and you can see it makes wonderful fronds, looks absolutely amazing. But what that will do is that will put energy back into your crowns that will fuel the harvest for next year. Now over the next few weeks, it doesn't have to be done right now, but over the next few weeks I shall be giving this a nice top-up mulch, which will obviously feed the soil life and provide plenty of nutrients for when it gives us our harvest next May. These potatoes are in flower, Mrs. W.
I know, lovely.
This is a new variety to us, Blue Danube. It's actually part of the Sarpo family. So, first of all, that's telling me that there are potatoes under there. They're not ready yet. You've got to let them swell up. You can probably hear in the background I'm filling a watering can. And for my next tip, anything that you're growing in containers, make sure you water regularly. The temperature here in the UK at the moment is really quite warm. And it's not just the potatoes you need to be concerned about, anything that you're growing in containers. You can see here where we've got all our container plants that you saw us plant up in our previous videos. They will need watering regularly, especially when it's hot like it is today. It's a lovely, balmy 25 degrees here at the moment in our no-dig Norfolk garden, and the sun is shining profusely. When it comes to your soft fruit, in fact anything that's going to be fruiting, tomatoes, cucumbers, strawberries, they all need a good feed. Regardless whether they're in a polytunnel or they're outside, it will boost your harvests. And in particular, these that are in raised containers, these hanging baskets, because their roots are not in the soil. They cannot take advantage of the nutrients that are in the open beds. But even the ones that you are growing in open beds, they will benefit greatly from a nice comfrey feed. Tomatoes too. And if you don't actually have comfrey, so you can't make your own comfrey feed, any good organic proprietary tomato feed you can use to do the same job. I was kindly reminded by Ken, who said on a previous video, may have been a year or two ago, but one of my sayings was always be having plants ready to go. And he's been following that advice and has had really good success. And you can see it's exactly what myself and Mrs. W do. Now these plants are not, they can't go in the ground yet because the space I want to put them in is still occupied. But because they're starting to get quite large now, we've potted them on. And that's the way you can keep them going and once that space becomes available, in will go these plants. The advantage for you is that these plants have already done 4 to 6 weeks growing. They're already on their way. If you haven't sown anything yet and you want to put them out in the next 2 weeks, they won't be able to go out in the next 2 weeks. They won't be big enough. So you can actually pinch some time, borrow some time for your plants so that they're a certain size and they've already done quite a lot of their growing to ensure that you get the harvests when you want them. For my next tip, you need to ensure also that any plants you have in your undercover spaces are regularly watered. Remember in the 8 tomato tips, I said you need to set yourself up a regime so they get used to having water every 2 to 3 days. But on really, really hot days, you may have to come in and do it every single day. These alderman peas now are well in flower and we've got lots of peas now forming. And when it comes to a watering schedule, things like peas and beans, any of the legume family, you don't need to be watering them all the time unless it has been really dry. The most beneficial time to water them is actually when they are in flower, because then they need to swell up so that you get the peas in the pod. So as soon as you see the flowers on any of the legume family like this, ensure that they are adequately watered if rain hasn't fallen. While we're on the subject of water, do make sure that anything new that you've planted is watered regularly until it has established itself. The moment you transplant them in, of course, puddle them in, but then continue to do that every couple of days or so during the first week or so of their life. And it has been really dry here in our no-dig Norfolk garden. We actually did see some rain midweek, didn't we?
Yes.
But up until that point, it's been very dry, and it's gone very dry again. And if it continues like that, it may take longer. You'll know when they're established because they will no longer begin to wilt. These are standing up quite nicely, and I've been watering these in. So last weekend I planted these, I believe it was,
Yes,
wasn't it?
it was, yes.
Yeah, so for the last week or so I've been coming out here and just giving them a little drop of water. And if you're wondering what these are, well, this represents myself and Mrs. W's greens to be eating during the month of October. You saw earlier where we put some bird netting up in front of the poly to keep Mrs. Blackbird out. And we needed to find a solution in order that we can keep that polytunnel well ventilated. As obvious as it sounds, don't forget to ventilate your undercover growing spaces well. At this time of the year, it's really hot. I think I said it was 36.2 degrees in there, didn't I? Mm-hmm. It's actually 40.3 degrees under glass. It's really, really hot. So make sure any vents you've got are open, doors open, and if the outside temperatures really start to rocket this summer, it's a good idea to put some shading over your greenhouse. We don't have to do it that often, thankfully, but there have been the odd year or two where we've had to do it when it's gotten really hot. And we normally put it on this side because the sun is always on this side, just to help shade these plants from the burning rays of the sun. Now it's important, if you've got grass edges like us, that you keep the edges short and away from your plots, because this will root itself into your plots, and before you know it, it will have crept all the way into your beds. And of course, it goes without saying, keep on top of any weeds that you see popping up. Now it may be coming to the end of the asparagus season, but actually on this elephant garlic you can eat the scapes that appear in exactly the same way as you can with hard neck garlic. They send scapes out as well. The reason I mention asparagus is because these have a taste similar to asparagus. They're actually known as a poor man's asparagus, these scapes, and they are really tasty, aren't they, Mrs. W?
They're lovely, yeah. Yes, they're really lovely. I cook them much the same as I do the asparagus, actually. It's just a bit of a sauté with some butter, salt and pepper. About the same amount of time, just a few minutes in a pan and they're done.
These are going to be very, very nice with my first early swift potatoes that I'll be harvesting later today. By ticking off these 13 jobs, plus the bonus that we show you, will ensure that you will have really healthy plants that are more pest-free, and the harvest, of course, will be that much bigger and more abundant. Do let me know in the comments which of these jobs we've mentioned are at the top of your list. And indeed, if you have some others to add for everybody who reads the comments to look at, then please do add those. If you like what we do, don't forget to hit that like button. And while you're there, hit the subscribe button. And then you'll know whenever we upload a video. And don't forget, healthy soil means healthy plants. No spade required.